So the G6 replaces the not-so-loved LG G5, which had a modular design, but it had some build issues and was a little more complex and didn't get the basics right. The LG G6 really goes into another direction, with a stunning display, all metal and glass design, loses the modularity and the swappable battery, but gains a host of features including waterproofing, wireless charging, and a stunning Quad HD display that's extra tall and fills up the bezel, so we have this near bezel-less design that certainly looks very distinctive and progressive for smartphones. Now this is a pre-production unit, so things will change or improve before we see the final release, but of course we're going to go in depth anyway, and we're just going to skip on things like battery life, software performance, or camera quality until I get my final review unit. So this has an extra tall 18:9 aspect ratio. Now it's called a Quad HD display, but really it's Quad HD Plus, so there's actually additional screen real estate at the top and bottom of the display compared to most Quad HD phones. So we have a resolution of 1440 by 2880, so 2880 is better than the 2560 that comes with most Quad HD displays, but the width of the phone is about the same, 1440. So the pixel density here is 564, so once again it's a very sharp and clear display. Now it's not an OLED panel, so it's not quite as stunning as an OLED panel on some other smartphones, but it is a bright display, around 600 nits, and it does have great off-axis viewing and deep contrast. But with all this bonus screen real estate at the top and bottom, they've also been able to round off the corners, which I think looks fantastic. It kind of gives you this idea that the display is now much more malleable. It's not a component you just stick on the phone and build it around it. The display is actually built to the phone's design. So you have those rounded corners that matches the rounded edges of the case design. But those rounded corners also have a practical purpose as well. So when you drop your phone, you're less likely to damage the display when you hit the corners. Like many smartphones coming up this year, this does support HDR, specifically the Dolby Vision and HDR10 standards. So for video that supports it, you're going to see that on this phone, and it's a fantastic benefit. Now the design of the phone is all glass and metal. The glass on the front is Corning Gorilla Glass 3, the glass on the back is Corning Gorilla Glass 5, and then the glass covering the camera lenses is Corning Gorilla Glass 4, so we have a sampling of everything. So taking a close look at the edges of the phone, along the left side we'll find our dual volume controls. Along the right side we'll find our dual nano SIM tray and micro SD card slot. This does support 256 gig cards, so you have a lot of room here. But included on board is either 32 or 64 gigs of onboard storage with 4 gigs of RAM. Toward the bottom edge, everything is now waterproof, including the mono speaker, the USB Type-C connector, which does support fast charging, and a microphone. Toward the top, we'll find a headphone jack and another microphone for noise cancellation. Around the back of the phone, we'll find a very clean design. We have this curved glass back panel with this flush camera system, along with a near flush power button and fingerprint sensor. I actually think it's a little too flush because it's kind of hard to feel for, but it works extremely fast. Also returning once again is a dual camera setup, but this time it's new and improved with 13 megapixel sensors under both camera lenses. So we have a wide-angle f2.4 aperture camera without optical image stabilization, and a standard 13 megapixel sensor with an f1.8 aperture and full optical image stabilization. Both cameras do benefit from laser-assisted autofocusing and a dual LED flash. So both of these cameras do support 4K video recording at 30 frames per second, along with HDR and 24-bit stereo sound recording. So when it comes to using these dual cameras for video, it's actually really impressive. You can jump between the wide angle and standard angle lens while you're recording video. But it's also great that both cameras seem to have equal quality stabilization, or very close to it. So even though the main camera is the only one with optical image stabilization, the wide angle lens also has excellent stabilization as well. Along the front, we have a 5 megapixel front-facing camera with an f2.2 aperture, so it's a nice wide-angle camera which delivers 1080p video. When it comes to specs, nothing really groundbreaking here. This is a Snapdragon 821 quad-core processor with an Adreno 530 GPU. So that's more than enough for Android 7.0, which personally is the spec I'm most interested in, so this comes with the latest version of Android. When it comes to our battery, we have a 3300 mAh battery, which isn't terribly large, especially for a 5.7-inch phone. But it is larger than the one in the LG G5, and it does keep the phone light and thin. Now, when I first picked up this phone, the first thought that ran through my mind is just how thin, light, and compact it feels for a phone with a 5.7-inch display. Now, compared to other phones like the iPhone 7 Plus with a 5.5-inch display, that phone feels huge compared to this. I actually find this phone extremely comfortable to use because the bezels are so small, so it's easy to reach toward the top of the display to swipe down, and the phone is nice and narrow. In fact, it's narrower than a lot of phones that have smaller displays, again, like the iPhone 7 Plus. So it's surprising how comfortable a phone of this size can actually be. So digging into the software, the first thing we get here is our ambient display mode, which shows us our current date and time and notifications. Double tap to wake it up and expand it out if you want, or just use the fingerprint sensor to quickly unlock the device. This is Android 7.0, so we do have our Google Assistant built in, so tap and hold. what's the weather like tomorrow in Rochester Hills?
There will be thunderstorms tomorrow in Rochester Hills.
And of course, it also uses voice. Okay, Google, what's the weather like tomorrow in Toronto?
In Toronto, it'll be rainy with a high of 56 and a low of 22.
And it also works when the phone is locked. Okay, Google, what's the weather tomorrow in Chicago? So digging into the home screen, if we swipe all the way to the right, we get to the LG Smart Bulletin, which is a feature we can turn off if we don't want it. But basically, this allows us to aggregate these widgets based on some categories we might be interested in, such as music, LG Health, and more. If you tap and hold on the home screen, you can also get an overview, which you can edit. So you can see your home screens, add new ones, reposition or reassign the home screen. You can also add widgets from the widget selector right here, or you can change up your themes, and there's always tons of themes on LG phones that you can apply. Under home screen settings, this is where we can select a different launcher. So if we select our home screen launcher, we can choose one with an app drawer. So if you want an app drawer, you can go ahead and select it, adds it right away. Now just to show you what the app drawer looks like here, so we have apps and widgets, and of course we have lots of options for searching, and you can also arrange them differently. So we can hide certain apps, we can edit or uninstall apps from this launcher as well. So without the app drawer, things get a little different here in terms of editing the home screen apps. So for example, I can take this up to delete or just reposition it, but if I let it go, you can see I now have these icons that allow me to delete those apps if I want. So for apps that I can delete, you'll see that X next to them. So that's one way of managing this, and of course you can also delete your home screens if you don't want them. Now, if you do delete an app, it doesn't delete right away. So I'm going to click delete. And this tells me that the app went to app trash. So if you want to get to app trash, again, just tap and hold on the home screen and go to app trash, and you'll see it there. So I can go ahead and restore it, or if I wait 24 hours, it'll go away automatically. Swiping down on our notification panel, of course, we have our very familiar Android 7.0 interface for our notifications, and we have all these quick setting toggles up top which expand out with multiple pages. Now, down below, you'll see some of these widgets here for volume and brightness controls, and if I expand it out, you'll see screen sharing and file sharing. So all of these are features I can turn off if I want. Just go to Edit, and this allows me to go up to ellipses and check those on and off. I also get this workspace for adding or removing some of those widgets, so if I want to simplify this, all I have to do is drag some of these or re-add them if I want. Now quickly taking a look at some of these, we have Capture Plus, which is a screen grab feature. This basically allows us to take screen grabs of whatever we're looking at and annotate on it if we want. We also have Comfort View, which will warm up the display, and if you want to change the settings for this, just tap and hold on it. It takes you right to the settings panel. So you can change the intensity, or you can also change the color inversion. So if you want black and white, or just go with a warmer color. Now by default, all of these apps get this sort of rounded design right down to the app folders, and you can change this again under settings. Just go to home screen settings and you can select your icon shape, so you can go with rounded square or just the default original design. We also get a new universal search interface. So if you swipe down on the home screen, we have our search box up top, but we also have our recommended apps in addition to our favorite contacts, recent emails, some frequent websites, and more. All of this in one stop location, and you can expand these out as well. We also get side-by-side apps, which works especially well with this extra tall screen. So you can go to your app launcher or your recently viewed apps, and you'll see that each of the apps that support it will have these icons right next to it. So for example, YouTube and Chrome support it. So I can go ahead and select YouTube by clicking on that, and then I can go ahead and select one of the other apps in my launcher. So if I go and find something else that's compatible, like Chrome, select it, opens up side by side, and I can resize it, and it's really smooth on this device. This also works in landscape view, so I can watch video on one side and browse the web on the other.
Devices available from Google. So these were...
Now, if you want to close out the bottom app, just drag and drop the divider until it disappears. You can also tap and hold on the recent apps viewer to dismiss that, or if you want to get back to another app, tap and hold to bring this up. This brings us up to our launcher, so we can go into something else such as our contacts or even the App Store. So digging into settings, we get this tabbed view by default, but if you want to do things the Android 7 way, just go up to list view and you get a continuous list of all your settings. You can also swipe in to see your settings tree along the left as well. You also see some of the information below each one, just like Android 7.0. Now, when it comes to settings, there's quite a bit to look at, but what I want to focus on here is under display. So if we go to display, we'll find something called app scaling. So with app scaling, we actually have a few apps that you can rescale for the size of this display, such as Twitter. So with Twitter, I have the option to do 16 by 9, 16 by 7 by 9, or 18 by 9, which is what I want to use, so nothing is cropped. Under display, we also have our home touch button, so we can customize the layout or change the color. So if you want to go with the black theme, you can go ahead and select that or not. And then we can change the layout. So we can change the button combination and add a few features. So for example, if we want to drop down notification button or the Q slide button, we can go ahead and add those. So I can quickly jump to my notification shade or hide it, or jump to the Q slide apps. So Q slide, if you're not familiar with, are basically windowed apps that you can resize or change the opacity, and you're limited to 2 at a time. So on the lock screen, we have the shortcuts for our favorite apps. So all I have to do is swipe across on them, and in some cases you'll have to unlock your phone to get to it. So this will bring me right to my phone dialer. And of course we also have the camera app as well, which doesn't require a password to authenticate. But of course you can customize this under settings. So we're going to go to shortcuts, and you can add 3 additional ones. So if I go to my lock screen now, I can quickly swipe up on those apps, unlock, takes me right to it. We also have our shortcut keys, which is on by default, but basically this turns the volume keys into quick action items. So for example, if I double press the volume down key, this quickly launches into the camera app, or if I double press the volume up key, this will launch into the quick memo plus app for taking notes, but I do have to unlock to do that. So when it comes to our camera app, this has been tweaked to take advantage of the extra screen real estate. So I can see my gallery up top persistently, and I can go ahead and snap photographs. So if I snap a photograph, you'll see it appear right here, so I can jump right to it. It's really actually handy to have. Of course, we have our wide angle and our standard view camera, so you can see how this zooms out. Of course, this also works in landscape orientation, which is how you mostly want to use this. So take a photograph, and you can see that sort of anamorphic distortion that comes with this wide angle lens. There's also some interesting camera settings here you won't find on other smartphones. So if you go to video resolution, you'll see that we actually have an 18:9 aspect ratio selection for a few of these resolutions. So full HD, regular HD, both have 18:9, and we do have full HD 16:9 at 60 frames per second. But of course, I prefer Ultra HD at 16:9, which is standard. In terms of the front-facing camera, you can also just swipe on the screen to switch to it or switch back to the rear-facing camera. And you can see that it sort of lights up the entire screen to light up your shot, but if you want to turn this off, you can, so it goes back to the standard view. We also get these tools to help us out with photographs, so you can change the lighting or the skin tone. So if you want to improve your skin tone or complexion, you have those sliders right here. And as always, we have this kind of funky gesture feature, so we can hold up our hand, make a fist, starts a countdown, gets us ready. So even though this is not a final production unit, I'm really impressed by this phone. I love its features, its screen, its design and build quality, and its performance overall. But of course, things will improve before we see the final release, so stay tuned for that full review. Hope you guys enjoyed this look at the LG G6. If you did, please give it a thumbs up to let me know, and stay tuned for the next video.